Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're going to preview All-Star Weekend, which is a 2-week week. Yes, that's the right way to say that. There's 9 off nights and 1 on night. That's it. 9 off nights, which means there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of players to pick up. I mean, when I was going through who to suggest, it's kind of hard to choose, to be honest, just because so much of it comes down to how you can fit players in. You got to be really smart about it. It's easy, but you got to be smart about how you're going to take advantage of these next 2 weeks, because there's a lot you can do.
Yep. I think the easiest thing to think about is just get a start or two in the first week of the 2-week week, and then swap whoever you grabbed out during the All-Star festivities for somebody else who's going to play 3 or 4 games.
Yep, that's a smart move, because there is some teams, especially I think Detroit plays early in the week or early in the 2-week week or whatever. And so there's a lot of people available there, right? Like Detroit has so many players.
Florida is the only team, for whatever this is worth, that plays Monday, Tuesday. And then you can, so that means you could, if you really wanted to bin max, you could swap on Wednesday for somebody and then swap again and wind up getting like 7 starts out of one spot or something. But
that is a smart thing to do, though.
That might be a little crazy, but it's
a
thing.
That's what we're here to do, right? We're here to hash out crazy strategies and scenarios. That's pretty much what we're here for.
Yep.
Like John Scoy being a soft-boiled egg, all that kind of stuff. So let's start off the week review. And my first bit here to talk about is the Penguins' depth. We talked about it a little bit on the weekend preview, just kind of saying how, it's continuing, that kind of thing. But I think one insane thing now that we're noticing is that it just continues to be good. Like, they keep producing. Forget about the difficulties that it might make in roster construction for them going forward or anything like that. From a fantasy perspective, it's kind of nuts that Cahoon, McCann, all these guys just continue to do really well from a position of depth for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I can see it continuing.
Yeah. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that, but yeah, we talked a little bit about how injuries have kind of pushed these guys to the forefront, but with Malkin and Crosby there, it kind of doesn't matter who's on their wings. They're going to be not necessarily totally relevant at all times, but they're going to get a significant boost in their normal relevancy, to say the very least. Okay, my first bit was last week I mentioned that they put together the Stamkos, Point, and Kucherov line and everybody else is screwed. And then when Palat came back, they split it back up. And now they played with it again, except the second line was the one that Cirelli got a hat trick on, with like Palat assisting all of them. I don't know. I don't know what's going on anymore. Nothing makes sense. Cirelli's the best player in the world. I don't know.
I mean, obviously.
Yeah. But seriously, though, if they're going to continue to keep that line together, I am worried about the supporting cast. I get that they shelled out Hellebuck somehow, but I don't necessarily think that will keep up, despite the fact that Cirelli gets like 20 plus minutes a game. I think one of the biggest things that Tampa's going for them is that power play, and I don't see Cirelli factoring in on it too much. So that's going to always limit his upside. And Palat and Johnson on the other side, but they sure had a game here. We're recording this on Friday night, so they sure had a game on Friday night.
My next bit here is on kind of to the same point you were talking about, Stamkos, Kucherov, and the keeping these lines together. So Barkov had a pretty cold start to January, and a lot of people were kind of questioning, okay, what's up? What's going to happen? And he's really turned it on as of late. And I remember I even saw one trade that was kind of crazy where someone was questioning, oh, is this a good trade for me? And it was complete fleecing where they got Barkov. And I think Huberdeau is obviously an insane player. He just became the all-time leading scorer for the Florida Panthers. And, of course, Barkov gets in on a lot of that. And so I wouldn't question Huberdeau or Barkov going forward. I know I've seen, like I said, a lot of questions about them. And I think every time we've gotten questions about this all season long. And every time I think my answer will always be the same going forward, is that I trust Barkov and Huberdeau entirely for the rest of the season.
Yep. And we did before the season started. Nothing new on them.
Nothing's changed. Yep.
Huberdeau was like going to be one of the best 5th or 6th round steals, and it certainly seems to be the case still.
And the thing is, too, like I think, especially with players like Barkov and Huberdeau, not so much. I mean, he's been crazy consistent, but I think just in general, you've got to remember that really good players the most elite players, their consistency is usually around 80% of what they get in points, right? So 80% of their games, they'll get a point. And then there's players like Barkov and maybe a little bit less elite, like the, Connor McDavid's and whatnot, that end up getting somewhere in like that 70% range. So their slumps will happen. Like slumps are going to happen. You just have
Did you
to
just
learn
call
to...
McDavid a little bit less than elite?
No. I was saying Barkov a little bit less than Connor McDavid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No. Connor McDavid is like the epitome. Draisaitl, McDavid, those are the guys that are like Malkin. Those are the guys that their consistency scores are just absolutely ridiculous, right? Those are the ones that are going to maybe be in like maybe the 90s at times. But all I'm trying to get at is that just remember that you're not going to get a point every game. No player does that. And so just tackle slumps with grace, I guess, is the best way to put it. Is you've got to power through some slumps sometimes. And just because a player goes through a slump doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad forever. It just means maybe they're going through something.
Yep. Okay, my last bit on the week review is the fallout of Dougie Hamilton breaking his leg.
I'm so sad.
Yeah. He's done for the fantasy season, unless he's like Superman and they just...
Yeah.
Or he's the Bicentennial Man and they remake him better, faster, stronger, and he comes back as like a cyborg or something. But realistically, this is probably it for Hamilton for this season. He is a great acquisition target for Dynasty and Keeper leagues. If you are either so far in first that you are not worried about it, or you're so far from the playoff picture that it doesn't matter, he's a great guy to target to keep for next season. And on the other side of things, there's a lot of speculation about what to do regarding the other defenseman on Carolina who's going to fill that role. Looks like it's going to be Gardner, but I don't care that. Like, I mean, okay, I just don't think it matters that much unless you're in like a points only league. Gardner, who's the likely kind of successor, I guess, is not exactly a fantasy stud at the best of times. He might get you the points, but he's going to get you nothing else. And we're already seeing that. He played top power play in the game on Friday night. Not a lot coming of it, and not a lot coming in the way of peripherals either.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not touching Gardner or Slavin at the moment. I mean, I have Dougie Hamilton in like 5 or 6 leagues, and so I need to figure out what the hell I'm going to do there. But I'm not really looking towards the Carolina defense. And we talked about this a little bit offline, but one thing too is that, they've been switching around that power play so much. There's been so much moving around on the power play, and the one constant has seemed to be Dougie Hamilton. And I don't necessarily think they're going to say, okay, well, we need a defenseman to be that constant. I think it was just that Dougie Hamilton was the constant, right? And so I don't think there's necessarily going to be a decision on will it be Slavin or Gardner. I think there's a very, very good chance that they both split, and honestly, neither of them are all that relevant from a power play points perspective.
All right, on to the injury report, which, I thought because we were recording this sort of a day earlier than sometimes we do, that this report was going to be really short, and nope. A lot happened. A lot happened in this last week to fantasy relevant players in both directions, returning to the game and exiting. So let's start in Boston. We've got Tuukka Rask, who is day-to-day with a concussion. We've got David Krejci, who's day-to-day with an upper body injury. We've got the aforementioned Dougie Hamilton, who's probably out for the season with a broken leg. We've got Dylan Strome, who's day-to-day with an ankle injury. We've got Miro Heiskanen, day-to-day with an upper body injury. We've got Sergei Bobrovsky and Chris... it's Drieger. Drieger, yeah. Both day-to-day. Bobrovsky with an upper body injury and Drieger with a lower body injury. So that leaves them in the lurch, to say the least. I guess Montembeault is going to be their starter now. I couldn't get worse, so whatever. Next up, Kyle Palmieri is day-to-day with a foot injury. John Gabriel Pageau is day-to-day with an upper body injury. We've got Carter Hart out 2 to 3 weeks with an abdominal strain. Morgan Riley is out at least 8 weeks with a broken foot. Jake Muzzin also out week to week with a foot injury. We've got William Karlsson. They called him week to week with an upper body injury, and then they just announced that he's going to miss 2 games at least. So that's kind of sounds like different things to me, but maybe it's on the shorter side of 1 or 2 weeks versus 3 or 4. That's it for leaving. On the way back, we've got Jacob Silverburn returned, Joel Armia returned, Ryan McDonough, Cam Atkinson, John Klingberg, Jonathan Marchessault, Sidney Crosby, Nikita Zaitsev. I know a lot of you don't care about him, but he is fairly important in, well, maybe not fairly important, but he has some value in full banger leagues, if you have blocks especially. Andreas Janssen, Andre Palat, and Jack Hughes all returned to action. And that is it for the injury report.
That you weren't lying. That was a long one.
It was a long one. Enjoyed mocking that up for the YouTube video.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. So here is my first drop candidate as we move into that. And people, try not to burn down my house. I'm not gonna even give you a hint where I live here, but if you are planning a parade, you can totally come by my house. Rasmus Sandin, defenseman on Toronto, 26% owned.
Oh,
what the hell, folks? Come on. He played less minutes in the last game than he did in the first one. I mean, how is he 26% owned already? It's insanity. I have nothing to say to that. Like, honestly, aside from I don't get it, man. Like, it's honestly completely
plus
crazy.
25% in the last day.
And please remember, like, people. So I know we got like one comment on YouTube, and some other people tweeted at us, and we're like, "He's a beast." And look, I'm not disagreeing with you. His World Junior performances were unbelievable, and I totally believe in Rasmus Sandin. But remember, I am not saying he sucks in real life. That's not what I'm saying. He can be as good as he wants in real life, and look is good on the ice. But if he's not getting minutes, if he's not getting the right deployment, I don't care how good he looks out there. It doesn't matter for fantasy. That's just the fact of the matter. And right now, the truth is he doesn't matter for fantasy. And quite frankly, I don't really see a path to him mattering right now. But he isn't. If we would have seen him go from that 2-assist game to now getting 20 plus minutes in the next game, then I'd say, you know what? Okay, maybe there's something here. When a player goes from playing 16 minutes and getting 2 assists to playing less time, that doesn't point to me that this player is going to get more deployment. It means to me that player is kind of stuck where they are. And granted, it's only 2 games, right? But we have to do the best with what we have here. And in the case of Rasmus Sandin, there is nothing right now that points to him being 26% worthy.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely
insanity. It's really one of the craziest ones I feel like I've ever had to talk about. Because I can't remember in recent memory a guy that's been like this, where there's just nothing, in my opinion, that even points to him being, just worthy of this much ownership. Yeah, it's nuts. And I'm flustered.
It sounds like it. So all 3 of mine are above 50% owned. And so this comes with the caveat of you don't have to drop these players, but if they're your worst player and you're considering dropping them, this is me kind of giving the green light. If they were my worst player and I wanted a streamer spot, most likely I would drop any one of these guys. First one is John Gabriel Pajot. Now that he's injured or whatever's going on, especially if you don't have IR plus slots, I'm not eating roster spots to hang on to him. He's slowed down. He's kind of starting to return to what we saw. He still puts up decent peripherals. He's not the worst player in the world or anything, but he's 65% owned, and that I get why he got there. I don't quite understand why he's still there. And now with this injury, I think, people are already dropping him. I think we'll see more of that. And if he were on my team and I was, looking to stream for this next week, he'd be one of my options. Although it does seem like he'll be back soon, so whatever. But even when he hasn't been playing particularly well, regardless. So.
Yeah, and we did get a lot of questions recently. And on the Sit Start live stream, a lot of people were asking if they should drop Pajot for streamers. So that's a good call out. My next one, God, how many times do I have to put him here? Martin Jones. Why is he 59% owned still? He has 2 straight games of being just terrible while Aaron Dell is playing well. He's done, folks. This is it. Martin Jones is over. I would rather run no goaltenders than run Martin Jones at this point. Honestly, I would rather have 0 goaltenders and forfeit everything from a goaltender standpoint than have Martin Jones. You're not going to get starts out of him, so you're not going to get volume. He's absolutely terrible when he does play. Aaron Dell is stealing the net, and he's doing well, so that would speak to me that Martin Jones should also be doing well. 59% is ludicrous when there's other good goaltenders out there right now.
Yep. So my next one here.
Actually, one final like hot take on that? I would rather have Detroit goaltenders than Martin Jones right now.
Yikes.
That's how much I dislike Martin Jones going forward. Yeah.
That's pretty close.
I mean, at least you're going to get volume and saves, but yeah.
If you need them. Okay. My next one is a player that played 12 and a half minutes in his last game and yet is 55% owned. Left wing, right wing, Clayton Keller. He was fun for a minute, and now we're back to disappointment from a fantasy perspective. He's got no points in his last 6 here. His shots are starting to come down. His minutes are starting to come down. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good at all. 55% is too high. I get that after that 12-shot game, he went on a little bit of a heater. It's cooled off. He's cooled off. I don't think the Heat's going to come back this season. And not for more than a streamer anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to stick to Arizona, actually, and go to our favorite player here in Nick Schmaltz. Center, left wing, right wing, 37% owned still. Yeah, just the same thing. It's just he's cooled off entirely. He scores in spurts. That's just who he is. He's wildly inconsistent. He is a streamer at best. And maybe he's one of the best, not best, but one of the better streamers out there when he is hot. But man, when he is cold, he is just ice cold, like up in the Antarctic cold. Just no, there's no reason to hold on to him anymore.
No peripherals either.
No peripherals either, yeah.
My last one here is Miro Heiskanen. So I'm basically picking on players that are injured here. But I feel like these are the types of players that you're wondering, what do I actually do with this guy, especially if I can't stash him? With Klingberg back, and the fact that even when Klingberg was out, Heiskanen was struggling to take power play 1 for any stretch of time, I don't really see it. He's got 3 points in his last 12 games. So it's not like there are some things to like. He's shooting quite a bit. He's hitting more. He's blocking more. So he does give you. He kind of reminds me of a little bit worse Ryan Pulock lately. But that's not enough to hold on to, especially in leagues that don't count blocks. So 76% seems a little too high to me. I think you're better off with a streamer or Hronik. Just pick up Hronik. If you have Heiskanen and Hronik's on the wire, just do that and stop thinking forever. Never think again.
Great advice. Never think again in your life. That's it. Hronik solves all your problems. Everything.
Yes.
All your insecurities, all your overthinking. Hronik solves it all. Man, I should pick up Hronik. Jake DeBrusk is the next one. Left wing, right wing, 35%. Look, he's good when it's a streaming option. And I'm guessing this is why he's highly owned at 35%. But this always happens when Boston has a good schedule and Jake DeBrusk actually does something. He gets picked up a lot, gets up to that 30, 40% range, and then people hold on to him. And you don't. He's a streamer. So if he's your worst skater, which I would assume for most people he is, and he was picked up, obviously in a deeper league, I don't hate it. But in a non-deeper league where you just picked him up to stream, it's fine to dump him for another streamer.
Oh, as an aside, I just saw that it was Slavin that was supposedly going to be picking up that top power play slot. Although when I looked, it was Gardner playing it. But
of course,
Slavin's a little bit more interesting to me than Gardner would be. But
agreed.
I don't know if it's enough. Okay, let's move into long-term targets.
Yay!
So I've got a few here, 3 actually. I'll start with our good buddy Joel Armia, right wing, 24%. Came back doing Joel Armia stuff that we've kind of known him to do at least for this season. Didn't get a point, but he had 5 shots, 3 hits, and a block. And I'll take that all day. He also skated 21 minutes in a regulation win. So he looks like he's heading right back to what we saw from him previously, and that's great. Hopefully the points will come as well. But even if they don't, I'm cool with the peripherals.
I'm just curious here. Do you also have Ilya Kovalchuk on your long-term target?
Of course I do.
Okay, so I have a question for you, but first, how about you give me your take on Ilya Kovalchuk and why he's your long-term target?
I don't see why he wouldn't be anybody's long-term target at this point. He's playing like a completely renewed player. I mean, it is a little worrying that he played a little bit under 16 minutes in the last game, but not super concerned with it. And he did get 2 goals, so...
So my question would be then, and I know a lot of people are going to have this question because they're both same team and all that, and they're kind of similar, honestly. Who are you taking between Joel Armia and Kovalchuk? Who would you rather have?
It kind of depends on what I need. If I want points, I'm taking Kovalchuk. I do think he'll outpoint Armia, possibly by a margin. But as far as, you know what, I think I would just have Kovalchuk in general over Armia at this point. Because Kovalchuk's actually doing pretty well in the peripheral department too. He's throwing the body. He just seems to be very inconsistent with that. He either gets like 4 hits or no hits. That's kind of his thing lately, which is strange. So you definitely are going to get more hits from Armia and probably more shots, I would think. But I don't think they're going to be a big enough margin to make up for what I assume will be the point difference.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with that. I mean, that was kind of my take as well. I'm seeing Kovalchuk as a sometimes Armia that's scoring points more consistently at the moment. But
he's also left wing, right wing, which gives him like
helps
as opposed to Armia's right wing only.
Yeah. Okay, for my long-term targets here, since you went over 2 of yours, I'm going to go over 2 of mine since they're both goaltenders. And the first one here is Linus Ullmark, goaltender, 45% owned. He's playing really, really well. And I think that the thing that's a little scary about Ullmark is Buffalo can have some really big stinkers at times. But when you compare that to guys like Martin Jones or other goaltenders that are struggling, I'll take that for the sake of volume and some really good games at times. Like he's not the most consistent goaltender in the world, but I do like what he's doing. And of course, we've talked about Merzlikins endlessly, and Merzlikins is my favorite goaltender out there of just guys that you could pick up for really good volume. But again, I don't think Merzlikins keeps that starting role when Korpisalo comes back. So Linus Ullmark is someone, if you're afraid of that, Linus Ullmark is someone that I think is a better long-term option than Merzlikins if what you care about is the long-term and not the short-term. And then my other goaltender here that I have bought into, mostly just as I don't think it's a all the way through. I don't think it's a majority start thing rest of season, but I do think we see way more starts, and that's Ilya Samsonov, 56% owned. I am calling him a long-term. I'm ready to put him on long-term targets. He's entered the territory of Jordan Binnington from last year, in my opinion. Not in the sense of I think he steals the team, but he's playing like Jordan Binnington did last year. And I think any GM, any coach is stupid not to play that goaltender more and give your starting goaltender rest, especially if your goaltender is struggling a little bit. And honestly, I think the odds of Samsonov stealing the net are very low, but I do think they exist. Where before I used to think it was impossible that Samsonov steals the net, now I actually have a little bit of a percentage chance in my head that Samsonov could steal the net. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. I like him a lot long term, and I just like him quite a bit. I think it's a low chance that he steals the net this year, but the chance is there.
Yeah, I agree. He's been better. So there's that. All right. My last one is on the Devils, Nikita Gusev, left wing, right wing, 17%. I think with Palmieri out, it's going to help him a little bit. It just gives them another reason to rely on him a little bit more than they have been. And we've already seen his, over the last month or maybe even 2 months at this point, he's definitely improved. I mean, he was very slow off the bat at the beginning of the season. He wasn't really doing much. He wasn't getting a lot of minutes, and we're seeing that start to climb a little bit. He's still not like a cruncher or anything. He's getting, 15 and a half, 16 minutes. But I think with Palmieri out, he might see a little bit of a bump there and a little bit of utilization in offensive times where they may have needed Palmieri and don't have him anymore. Might see Gusev take that spot. So at 17%, I like the risk. Left wing, right wing, playing pretty decently lately anyway for the Devils.
Yeah, I like that move a lot. And my last one here is going to be Jared McCann, Pittsburgh center left wing, 37% owned. Now, I don't know if he's necessarily a long-term target. I think he could become a long-term target, and he's just one of those guys you've got. I think it's worth having him and then just kind of playing it by ear, because normally to me, I'm never against owning someone on Crosby's wing, because Crosby is just that good at 5-on-5. It's maybe the only player, even McDavid, we've seen some guys just not do that well just on his wing 5-on-5. But Crosby, it seems like you can put almost anybody with Crosby 5-on-5 and he instantly makes them better. And so I'm never against picking up a guy that's on Crosby's wing. And so McCann is a guy that while on Crosby's wing I don't hate having, especially if you're top of the league or something like that and just need some kind of upside. I don't hate it. He's playing decent minutes. It's not that he's only playing 14 minutes. He played 19 minutes the game before. Tonight, again, we're recording Friday night. He played 16 and a half minutes, almost 17 minutes. And so he's doing well. And occasionally he will get some peripherals. Tonight against the Red Wings, he didn't get that many peripherals, but he's been doing decently in the peripheral department as well. So he at least doesn't put up straight zeros most of the time. So he's someone, I think, more than anything, to have and have a short leash on, but that could absolutely turn into a long-term guy.
Yep.
And that is it for the long-term targets. Let's move into the week preview. And again, we are previewing the 2 weeks here. So because I probably should have mentioned that at the very beginning, shouldn't I? Yeah. I botched it. Probably. Oh, well. Well, there you go. Now you know if you've gotten this far into the episode. So for the week preview, the teams with 4 more games across this 2-week week. Man, that is a weird sentence that I really want to never say again. Anaheim, Detroit, Montreal, Nashville, Ottawa, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, Vancouver, Washington, Winnipeg all have 4 games across the stretch. And there's 3 teams that have 2 games, and that's going to be Chicago, Colorado, and the Islanders. So this is a good time to remind you again of what Brandon said on the weekend preview, which is if you handcuff any of those teams, Colorado is a pretty popular team to handcuff. The Islanders are a pretty popular team to handcuff. And for the people that are new to fantasy hockey, what handcuffing means is that you have both goaltenders from that same team. So this is a pretty common tactic where you'll just run, for example, Varlamov and Greiss only as your goaltenders, and you never really have to worry about other goaltenders, and you're pretty much just picking up a team goaltender effectively. So a lot of people do that. And if you do have that situation where maybe Colorado with Francouz and Grubauer, you're not going to hit starts this week. So you need to be careful and keep an eye out that you're going to have to pick up a goaltender more likely than not if you own or handcuff Chicago, Colorado, or New York Islander goaltenders. So just pay attention to that. And then teams that play 3 or more off nights are going to be Anaheim, Montreal, Nashville, Ottawa, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, Vancouver, and Washington, who play 4 or who have 4 off nights. So Washington is the best from a scheduling standpoint. And then all the rest also have pretty good off nights. But again, remember that there's 9 off nights total. So of all the weeks where the total number of off nights matter the least, this is it. Unless, of course, you maybe have really few ads in total for the season or a few ads for the week, then obviously that matters. So my first short-term target here is a highly owned guy that I'm just going to mention if you're in a shallower league, and that's Jakub Vrana. Left wing, 67% owned. He is all back on the top power play and playing fantastic as of late. The shots are up still. So I really like him as a potential long-term target as well when he keeps that top power play. But of course, top power play is pretty tenuous in Washington sometimes when you're not one of the big name players. So Vrana, at the very least, is a very good short-term target this week.
Yep. So Washington, all 4 of their games come in after the All-Star break, so they don't have any games beforehand. So, like I said, I think a good strategy is take somebody from the beginning of the week and then move over to somebody at the end of the week. So, with that in mind, a player that I really like for the beginning of the week is Zach Parise. Left wing, 21%. He plays against Florida and then against Detroit. Florida is on their 3rd string goaltender. Detroit is Detroit. So, there's about as good a beginning as you could have. And Parise's been really good lately, actually. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but he's about point per game over his last 5 or so. Peripherals are all right. He actually gets a decent amount of blocks for a forward. So all these things are good news for him and a decent ad for the beginning of the week. And then again, you're only going to get 2 games out of him probably. I mean, actually almost certainly going to only get 2 games out of him because Minnesota only plays 1 more game, and that's the heavy Saturday game, so forget that one. But for the first beginning of the week, get 2 games out of him, swap him out for somebody else.
Yep, I like that strategy. I have 2 Montreal Canadiens here that I like quite a bit. One of them is Artturi Lehkonen, left wing, right wing, 12% owned. I don't love his deployment, but he just shoots so much. So you can get a lot of shots out of him and a chance at points. And 12% is pretty lowly owned, so there's a good chance he's available in those deeper leagues. And then I like Philip Deneau as a center at 31% owned. He's been playing really well and getting a ton of minutes. So Philip Deneau is just another, one of those centers that I would like to bet on, given that he has the 3 off nights.
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, you could even obviously throw in the guys that we mentioned earlier, and Ilya Kovalchuk, Joel Armia, and even Nick Suzuki. Like, there's a lot of Canadians you could potentially use.
Yeah, the Habs are maybe my favorite team from a streaming perspective this week.
If they
They have a
just
lot
in
of
general,
options.
like if
Yeah.
they have if they're available as like a good off night team, there's so many options that are lowly owned. My next one, I'll stick with the beginning of the week. I've got two Detroit players here. Robbie Fabry, left wing, right wing, 8%. He's still playing good enough. Like he's not great or anything, but the fact that he's only 8% is a little low to me. But maybe not that crazy considering Detroit is so bad. But he does make a decent option here playing against Colorado. Grubauer has been, pretty on and off lately, and then Minnesota. So decent beginning of the week for Detroit, and coupling with Robbie Fabry here, I've got Philip Hronik, just to mention him again. He's only 29% owned still somehow. I think Hronik is probably a long-term ad in most leagues, and the second half of Detroit's week is the Rangers twice. So pretty good. And if there's any position you're going to be able to slot in on Saturday, it's probably a defenseman. So Hronik fits that bill as well, doing that home and home with the Rangers, which will be interesting. That's a pretty not the world's closest home and home, but it's what it is. Back to back home and home too. So traveling for both teams. It'll be a sludge match on that Saturday.
I love sludge matches.
Mm-hmm.
That is a tough thing to say right there.
It is.
Okay, so my next one here is Anthony Cirelli on the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have a pretty easy schedule next week. They play Dallas is tough, so they play Dallas. I'm trying to make sure that they don't play. No, they don't play early in the week, so they're later in the week play. But they do have a good one, so I like Dallas. I don't mind that. And then that last half of the schedule is really nice. They get the Kings, they get the Ducks, and they get the Sharks. That's some easy games there for the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have been red hot. And Cirelli is actually getting a lot of minutes. He's 17% owned, but he's been getting a lot of minutes, which I really, really like. And he's been capitalizing. And I think he's actually playing with Stamkos now.
So they swapped it and they swapped him back.
Yeah, and then they changed it a little bit in game.
In the last game, he didn't play with him. He was back on a line with Palat and Johnson. But
yeah, so it's been a little bit weird. But, and to be fair, I wrote this before the hat trick. So before the hat trick happened, I had him on this list. But I do like him a lot. So that's, that's my option right there.
Yep. My last one here is another option for Washington. So again, they've got that 4 off night second half of the week, and that's Lars Eller, center, 15%. Not exactly an eye-popping player here, but if you are trying to really maximize those starts, the Capitals are the best option, especially if you have limited ads. So Eller is interesting just from that regard, and he's been like pretty good, pretty decent lately. And the you can call it upside, I guess, of Vrana moving up to power play 1 means that he gets Eller's playing with Kuznetsov on power play 2, which is pretty decent as well. He's playing a lot of minutes. He actually looks a lot like Cirelli from a stat standpoint, without the hat trick.
My last one here. Oh, you're gonna love this one. You're not. You're actually not gonna love it, but I'm gonna say it anyways. That's Alexander Steen, left wing, right wing, 3% owned.
Dude is a bum.
Yep. He is a bum, but right now he's playing really well. And for 3%, it's just someone I want to put on your radar. That's been good. I get that he's unsustainable. He's going to cool off at some point. You should have a super, super short leash. But he's been unsustainable and just good and getting lucky for a while. And those are when you're going to take a bet on someone, you're in a very deep league and you're going to gamble on a player, I would much rather gamble on the guy that now for 12 straight games or whatever has gotten pretty lucky, as opposed to the guy who's gotten lucky over just 2 games or whatever, and it's because he got lucky deployment or something like that. I like what Alexander Steen's been doing, and just from a gamble perspective, in a league where you would actually consider a 3% owned guy, I wouldn't just shrug off Alexander Steen personally. Especially because
I never wanted you to be more wrong.
The week after, right? So that second week part, the tail end of the week, they play Monday and Tuesday. So he at least gets you 2 games early, and then you can dump him if you want. And then he has a break and doesn't play again until Friday. So you could get him for Monday and Tuesday on that second half of the week. and then drop him. But again, it just comes down to who are you willing to gamble on and where are you gambling. At 3% in those areas of ownership, it's hard to find guys to gamble on, and Steen's been good. I would do it.
Yeah,
I know you wouldn't, but
I mean, at 3%, I don't know who else is 3% that's worth it, but
yeah, that's the tough thing, is when you're getting there where you look at the last 14, 30 days and you're looking at these ownership percentages. I mean, a guy at 3% that's been doing what Steen has been doing, yeah, why not gamble there, And that is the show. So enjoy the All-Star game. We will be doing some cool stuff here over the All-Star break. So pay attention to content that's going to be coming out. We really want to do a redraft and just kind of see where we value players. I'd obviously not be drafting Dougie Hamilton anymore, unfortunately, which makes me extremely sad. Again, like I said on Twitter, I'm never napping again because waking up to Dougie being dead was the worst thing that happened.
What if it was a keeper?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Man, it'd be so hard.
Let's tackle that another day. We'll leave that to discuss on a different episode.
Right now.
Anyways, thank you for listening. Enjoy the All-Star break. Be smart about these next 2 weeks. Catch us on Twitter and our Discord, which you can find on our Twitter at FantasyHockeyPD, or go to our website, check out our tools and everything, fantasyhockeypodcast.com. We will catch you next time. Thanks for listening.
Yep. Thanks for listening.